Hello, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whatever it is you happen to be. I think we're live here. It looks like it's just starting to respond. Coffee time, coffee hour, time to answer questions, do things like that, chit chat, whatever's going on. I hope the drilling isn't too noticeable. There's a bit of pneumatic drilling happening out around the back here. And I've turned off the microphones under the piano in the hopes of keeping that a little bit more at bay. If I need to turn them on, I'll have to do so, and I'll turn them back on when that comes. This is odd. Held for review. I don't know why that would be. Stephen, I don't know why that was very strange. There's no reason I can think of that it would be held for review, but thank you. I believe those are hands clapping. That's very cool. Welcome. Okay, this is all fine. I was like, great, now the chat's not working. This is going to be awesome. So yeah, live Q&A, or perhaps just to say hello. Feel free to say hello. I'm Jeff, and yeah, thanks for helping me get back in vocal shape. You're very welcome. Thanks for watching. I suspect, Bryson, hey. I suspect that, and I hope that the videos are really, really helpful as people are starting to get back into doing whatever it is you're doing in your neck of the woods. I know in France there's like another lockdown that's happening, and we still are in the middle of this whole pandemic thing. Here in the U.S., things are starting to become more like, people can move around and things like that, and so people are getting back into, congregational singing and chorus and things like that. I don't know if there's any choirs that are open yet, but I imagine that's going to happen pretty soon, and hopefully the videos will help you stay tip-top for that. Hope your day is going well. Ashton, thank you. Yeah, so far so good. I was a bit sick yesterday, but I'm doing much better today. Hello, Jeff. Thanks for your videos. You're very welcome. Thank you. Hello, Jeff. Thanks for your efforts. You're very welcome, Martin. Very, very welcome. Thank you. Watching your videos from Hungary. Fantastic. Fantastic. I have only been to Hungary one time, but it was so much fun. Really beautiful, beautiful place. Bryson, I'm 16 and my vocal range is F2 to G5. Is this my permanent range? If your voice is already changed, yes, mostly. Male voices, you haven't said if you're male or female, so the whole change thing may be completely irrelevant too. Pardon me. Little goopy. Like I said, yesterday was a bit of a rough day for me. And I'm still getting back. So, yes, if you're male and your voice has changed, then that is probably quite likely going to be mostly what your overall range ends up being. That being said, male vocals typically do not settle down completely, usually into the mid-20s and beyond. So for higher vocal ranges for male vocals, mid-20s, early 30s, some of the deeper, the baritones, the basso profundos and things like that, much later still. Austin, how long should we practice singing each day and how many days a week? Great question. Great question. I always love getting questions like this too. So music... Sorry, folks. I'm really struggling with this morning. Music is best done as a daily pursuit. So as much of a daily practice as you can make it, the better off you'll be, the more progress you'll make. It kind of depends, too, on the kind of progress that you wish to make. If you only do vocalizations and you do 10 minutes a day, most days, 5, 6 days a week, then you'll get good. That'll work, but it's going to take a long time. It's going to take a really, really long time. So if you can do that 10 or 15 minutes of vocalizations, in addition to 20 or 30 minutes of repertoire, then you will most likely achieve whatever goals it is you have much more quickly. So obviously this depends on your goals as well. Generally speaking though, a daily pursuit, less is more. So think a little bit every day rather than 2 hours on a Saturday and nothing the rest of the week. Every day is a much better way of approaching the musical pursuit. Greetings, Jeff. Thank you for all your wisdom and help. You're very welcome, Leo. Thank you. Bryson, male. Okay, great. So I mostly answered those questions from the perspective of a male vocalist. Jordan, I'm watching you from Armenia? Brilliant. You're welcome, Bryson. AC Light. Hello, Jeff. I love your videos, and I'm a lyric baritone. However, my larynx control is terrible and tends to sound forced at E flat 4, even though I feel no major tension or strain. Well, so here's the thing. You see, like, for example, AC Light, you quote C2 to E5 chest or mixed. So presumably, if you're singing an E5 in chest voice, that qualifies as strained, or even if it doesn't feel like it. So physical experiences are, different for every individual. Just because one person says, "Oh, I'm singing a major second above my secondo passaggio," and it feels really strained, and you say, "Well, I'm singing a major second above my secondo passaggio and it doesn't feel strained," well, that is still not honoring the registration event. So some of that, the sound, like the forced sound that you're relating to there is, if you are in fact a lyric baritone, then because you're not honoring the registration events, you're not making the adjustments to the voice through the zona de passaggio on the way to the middle voice, not middle voice, the cricothyroid dominant singing voice. And beyond. So like E flat 4 for a lyric baritone is right below the secondo passaggio. The secondo passaggio for lyric baritones is typically going to be E4, a semitone above that. You should be very much, modifying vowels, very much allowing for cricothyroid dominance as you move beyond that point. And if you've gotten into the habit of using chest voice, which I honestly find quite unlikely that you're singing an E5 in your chest voice, that you're not allowing for the registration events to occur, and that's going to end up with a forced or strained sound, even if it doesn't physically feel that way. Physical sensations are relative. Leo, mind me sharing really quick, before COVID times, I was singing with a church choir, mostly in German, Latin, and English. There I was able to discover my upper register because of pandemic. I think that's good. I think that sounds like, once you settled into the pandemic, you were able to practice and do some different things. That's really cool. How long is too long to practice? Interesting question. If you find that from a day-to-day basis, you are not... And it's going to be relative to everybody. Basically, the thing is that if you find that your voice is just too tired from day to day and you're not recovering so that you can sing your best, another way to gauge this too is if it takes you a very long time to warm up. Now, that latter suggestion is for rather experienced vocalists that have a great understanding of the secondo passaggio, have a great understanding of registration event, a good appoggio practice. And in those cases, if they're taking a very long time to warm up, then they might be over singing on a day-to-day basis. But generally speaking, if you find that your voice isn't recovering adequately from day to day, then you might be overdoing it. Let me go back here a little bit. I was wondering if there's a good way to neutralize my larynx. Yes, I've done some videos on it. I'd have a look and start there. And see how that works for you. I think the titles are Sing with a Low Larynx And I used sing with a low larynx because that's generally how most people talk about it, but the video is about keeping the larynx in a neutral position. Robin, great advice on practicing. Thank you. I am a middle school band director, and I tell my students the same thing. I have learned so much from your videos. Thank you, sir. You're very welcome. Thank you for what you do. Being a middle school band director is no joke. I have been in that position, and it can be an awful lot of fun. It can also be it has its frustrations, as I'm sure you know. So thank you so much. And then AC Light says, yeah, definitely E5. It's strained. I was just wondering about that thing. Well, that's just what I'm saying. The E flat 4 to G4 placement, right? Yeah, I mean, you have to honor the registration events there in that E flat 4, E4 in order to then be here with good tone quality and good intonation and all those kinds of things. If we try to avoid or ignore our registration events, that's when we have intonation problems, forced or strained sounding phonation, things like that. There is a school of thought, I have been told, that sort of suggests pushing the registrations, like push it out as high as you can go as a practice, and then pull the cricothyroid or head voice down as low as you can as a practice, and that's somehow supposed to help you find the it's supposed to somehow train you to make a smooth transition. But in both cases, you're not honoring the registration event. I don't really do that in my teaching, and I would like, it would be interesting to talk with someone who teaches that way to find out exactly why that they feel that works. Because in my experience, all it really does is train vocalists to push too hard on the accent, so that on an ascending phrase, they ignore their registration event ascending and get too high, and it gets squeezy and forced. And then if they do manage to then get into their cricothyroid dominant singing voice, they get stuck there on the way down. And on the way down, they pull their head voice lower and lower and lower. And that creates its own problems too. Not entirely dissimilar from what it's like when you go up. What'll happen there is, if you get stuck in your cricothyroid dominant singing voice, is that you'll get down to a minor third or so below the secondo passaggio and not understand why you can't then go lower. And it's like this. I just don't. Like I said, I'd like to talk with someone that teaches that way, and just get a perspective on it. Because in my experience and in my teaching and in what I've studied, like the books that I read and things like that, I haven't come across any kind of information that would suggest that that's an efficacious route. Do you know of any specific tips for helping vocally with male puberty? I'm a 33-year-old trans guy, and my voice is changing after starting to eat testosterone, but I've always been a soprano. Be patient. Yes, the main things is that, okay, so I have been fortunate enough to work with several individuals over the years. Your vocal, you are probably aware. I'm going to say a bunch of different things. There's probably many things that you're already aware of, but just to kind of frame it all, your vocal folds are going to thicken, and that is going to fundamentally change the way that your voice responds through various registration events. If you were a soprano in the past, then your primo passaggio most likely would have been a more difficult boundary than the secondo passaggio. If you went through the practice of learning to transit that successfully, in other words, you were singing repertoire that took you below E flat 4 regularly, as opposed to staying all up above that, then transiting the secondo passaggio will probably feel somewhat familiar. If you did not do that, the secondo passaggio in the male voice can be kind of tricky, and it can feel like a hard boundary to the cricothyroid dominant singing voice. So like cricothyroid dominant singing voice, as a soprano, your middle voice registers from E4 to like F5, generally speaking. Like a soprano will have their secondo passaggio between F5 and G5, give or take. That middle voice register is very similar to our cricothyroid dominant singing voice, but it's also kind of similar in the way it functions to our zona di passaggio. Those registers are more delineated in the male voice. So your zona di passaggio will have different attributes and respond differently than like your lower middle voice did. And your cricothyroid dominant singing voice is going to be different from it. Basically, it's going to be different from your upper middle range, which is getting more and more cricothyroid dominant as you approach the secondo passaggio, but is also still going to feel different than when you were above the secondo passaggio. So there's going to be some changes. The vocal folds will thicken. The secondo passaggio may prove to be a little bit of a challenge, but keep at it. Look for vocal fold adduction and be gentle with your voice and give it some time. And it can take some time to settle down too. That was the other thing I meant to mention. Austin, if we are a music... Goodness me. See, it got off to a slow start and now I'm like hopelessly behind. If we are a music artist and are spending the day recording in the studio, should we still get a vocal practice session in or skip it until the next day? That's a great question. Generally it would be helpful to know more about your individual situation, but let's just say in general, if you're singing that much, then yeah, like use some vocalizations as your warm up for the next day. That would be my advice. So like before you start recording every day, do 5 minutes of vowels. It doesn't have to be anything special. Just, E, A, A, O, E, U. Just, run yourself through half a dozen 5 minutes. Drink your coffee or tea or whatever it happens to be, or water, whatever. Just relax, get into it. It's not just about the voice. It's also about our minds and our attitudes and perceptions of things. And speaking for myself, vocalizations really focus me. So it's not just about the vocalizations, but they will also keep your habits well placed. So that would be my advice to you. Just 5 minutes at the beginning of the day before you get going. But if you're already like all the way through the day, then, the day is spent. Don't worry about it. Would you be so kind as to answer how many times should someone warm up within one day? Yeah, that's a very interesting question. If you're like a person who does a lot of scheduled things, so like you warm up first thing in the morning and then you go about your day. By the time it gets to be 3 or 4 in the afternoon, you might need to warm up again if you have to sing for some reason. Like if you're, doing a, concert or recording or something like that. You might want to warm up once again. Additionally, what you make is a very good point here, is that especially for like the person who, like new vocalists especially, I think can benefit from this kind of strategy where you have to work on just a small number of concepts with the new vocalist so that they can get those in hand and then move forward, and you can deal with more concepts consecutively as they get more developed. But what you couldn't, so you just get like 1 or 2 exercises that have to be done, and it could be beneficial to do like 10 minutes in the morning and then 10 minutes in the afternoon. But it's not, there's no rules there's no hard and fast rules, just that generally speaking, a daily practice is the way that you want to go about your vocal practice. You don't want to leave it all for one day of the week. Practicing multiple times in one day, there's no problems with that as long as your voice is doing well, as long as you are able to focus and pay attention to how you're doing the exercises. No reason not to do that. Leo, now I am making my own songs, but don't want to lose it since I've sung C3 B5. Any pointers? I'm not sure why would you lose it? I mean, if you're not writing it into the tunes, That's, that's totally fine, obviously. But I don't understand why you would lose it. I mean, and I would say too, then make sure you get it into your vocalizations before you start singing that day. Make sure that you vocalize appropriately. But if you're making good registration events, it's not as if it disappears. Like, I think there's this unfortunate idea that singing notes above the secondo passaggio or things like that is a happenstance kind of thing. But you got to realize that when you watch artists that are performing, they do that every night. So if we're singing in such a way that we can only every so often sing something, we're missing something. That was the thing that eventually had me reevaluate my technique, such to the point that I changed my mechanism for breathing, for breath management, was because I had facility over the secondo passaggio and above the next registration event as well, for that matter. But the consistency was completely wrong. Like, it just wasn't nearly as consistent as it needed to be. That's what led me to take a very, very careful look at everything that was going on, discover that I had not been instructed and had not realized what appoggio was, and then relearned and retrained my breathing mechanism. Now, that's like 15 or 20 years ago now, but there was a long time where it wasn't right and my voice wasn't nearly as consistent. Singing above the registration events, that's not something one misses when your technique is developed and you're, using proper airflow and things like that. If I sing a G, I choose how I'm going to use my voice to sing it. It's not like it sometimes happens this way and sometimes happens that way. Like, and it's not, that sounds like, I don't mean to be boastful. That's not the way that's intended. What it's intended to convey is the idea that when our voices, like the way that we use the technique becomes the way that we sing. After repetition and practice and practicing properly, that's what it becomes over time. So I don't know why you would lose that, but I would say that make sure that you're vocalizing appropriately and evaluate your technique if it's not consistent. Just want to say hello and thank you, Chinese. Your warm-ups have opened up a whole new world of understanding with my voice. Awesome. That is what they are there for. Is there a step-by-step process to learn singing which I can follow daily from your videos? By the way, I'm an absolute beginner. Female, thank you. Yes. Well, one, my AAA method on jeffrolka.com, which it's free. You just sign up for the newsletter and you get the passwords. That is a linear method for the basics, for fundamental technical practice. So that would be the first step. The upper register practice is a course, an online course that I made called High Note Bootcamp. That enrollment for that only opens once per year. If you are on the newsletter, you get a notification. Enrollment for that just closed yesterday. I should have done a bit more talking about that. I failed in terms of advertising it a bit more, but yeah, that's the upper register course. But if you're a beginner, you get started with the AAA method, and then you'll be good to go. Hey Jeff, on vocal health, coffee affects cigar smoking. Have you seen any artists that reduced vocal quality? The heat from like coffee and beverages like that is usually more of a problem than the actual beverage itself. Cigar smoking, I just wouldn't smoke in general. None of that, as far as I'm aware, none of that stuff is good for your health in general, much less your singing voice. So yeah, like the thing with hot or cold, and it's true for cold beverages too, is we really want to have room temperature. That's what we really want. We want room temperature liquids when we're singing. But if you have coffee or tea in the morning or something like that, it's fine. Just make sure that you have time to vocalize afterwards before you have to sing critically. And maybe a little bit of time as well could be nice. Your videos are helping me a lot. I don't want to lose range and stamina. I am making my own backup vocals. Be well and safe. Likewise, yeah. Again, I think I went over that, but yeah, just Pavarotti, Caruso, etc. smoked? Question mark? Maybe, I don't know. A lot of people historically smoked, but whether or not, I mean, quite frankly, whether it's good or bad for your voice, I would just not smoke as a health reason. Like I don't think it's just about the voice, basically. I think about it as a whole body kind of thing. So that would be my suggestion, is that I just wouldn't smoke. Greetings from Bogota, Colombia. Greetings, Leo, from California today. Hello, Fort Worth, Texas. Fort Worth. It's been a long time since I've been to Fort Worth. Akara, hello, sir. I wanted to ask about my range. C2 to A5 from my head voice and my bridge. C4. You know, honestly, I'd really have to like work with you in a lesson to get a firm sense of that. I don't like to weigh in on like vocal fox, because it depends entirely on how you are navigating your registration events and the performance of your voice. I mean, just like sort of itemizing different notes throughout the piano, you may as well go to Wikipedia and search for vocal fox in Wikipedia, and they'll give you all of those numbers, and you can check there. I don't like to weigh in on these things because it can be perceived of as being some type of like from a place of authority, when I have no experience with your voice whatsoever, and no authority of any kind to make any sorts of evaluations on what your FOC might be. So if you're curious about what that might look like, head over to Wikipedia, search for vocal fox. You'll get the entry, and it has all the different fox in it, and you can come to your own conclusions there. If you really, really want to come to a great understanding of it, you would need to make sure that all the vowels are balanced throughout the various ranges of your voice. You're making modifications, you have a good arpeggio practice, and you are with an instructor that can really evaluate whether or not the secondo passaggio is accurately identified and yet you're honoring it. Thank you for getting me through the pandemic so far. What city are you in? I'm in Edmonton, Canada. I'm in Alameda, California. You're very welcome, Enema. You're very, very welcome. I'm glad that the videos, I could have done without the pandemic, but I'm glad that the videos were there to get us through it. Thanks so much, Jeff. The advice is very appreciated. I'm very much still a novice in voice, and I find every piece of advice in your videos to be so helpful. Thanks so much for answering my questions. You're very welcome. Miss Carter, is it okay as someone who sings mezzo to do warm-ups ranging from tenor to soprano? Yeah, there's like so much overlap in all of that. I mean, like a mezzo. Okay, so let's just take a mezzo, right? So G3 is generally speaking considered to be about the lowest note for the mezzos. Mezzos with a good registration event practice, can do. I mean, I know mezzos that have that C6. So that's all possible. Tenors, generally speaking, the tenor range videos, they're down to that C3 for most of the time. Sometimes I get down to B flat 3, but a lot of the range is going to fall between that G3 and C5 if it's an extended range video. If it's not extended range, then it's going to be that A4 for the most part. There's an awful lot of overlap in all the fox. I mean, even baritone and soprano, like the baritones, because a soprano who makes a good transition through their primo passaggio will get down to that C. It's not a ton, but a baritone, like a lyric baritone, even a regular baritone, with a good registration event practice, G4. So I know it's only a perfect fifth, but it exists. So yeah. Penny Lane is in my ears. I couldn't help myself. I saw that Saw that user ID. Saludos de Madrid. Salud. Fantastic. I love Madrid. Madrid was so cool. I've only been there once or twice, I think. Really brilliant. Austin, how does practicing for a live concert that lasts 2 hours differ from a normal everyday vocal practice session? Basically in every conceivable way, I'm afraid. But you said practicing. You didn't say how do the things event. I need to be very careful about how I observe these things. So yeah, there's one, you have to account for all the repertoire. So make sure that you have looked at the repertoire. I know you're going to look at the repertoire you're singing, but know the entirety of the range that you must cover, and also the degree. So I'm not suggesting you make a spreadsheet and tally up every instance where you go to an A4 or every instance that goes to F4 or anything. That's ridiculous and it's impractical. But in looking at your repertoire, try to gauge where you're spending a lot of time. Are you spending an awful lot of time in the zona de passaggio? Then weight your warm-ups, your practice for the preparation of that concert so that it is reflected in the practice, right? So like, I know I'm going to be spending an awful lot of time right there. That needs to be reflected in my practice. If you know that you're spending, like 80s cover bands are a perfect example of this. Like the 80s male vocals, everything is like E4 and above. So if that's your gig, then your practice needs to reflect that. The best advice that I can give you is make your vocalizations reflect your repertoire. And get started as soon as you can, especially if it's really extreme. Like if you're really spending an awful lot of time up above the secondo passaggio, you need to get on that well in advance. I'm not talking like a week. I'm not talking a month. I'm talking months in advance. That's the kind of time frame that we're talking about to develop the kind of consistency that's going to get you through the show. Really, like not just get you through it, but really make you shine. Like really, really make it awesome. That's the kind of prep that we want. Yeah, I hope that helps. Igor. Hello, Jeff. Thanks for your classes. I've been following you since last year and have had a great evolution. Hugs from Brazil. Thank you. Appreciate that. Hi, J-O. I use your warm-ups every day. Brilliant. Thank you very much for that, Hannah. When I get higher in my chest voice, it makes me gag. How can I sing in my chest voice, but not so far back in my throat? It's going to start in your middle range. If you're gagging, somehow you're tripping your gag reflex. It sounds to me like like the root of your tongue may be going like just way too far down. If you're really trying to, you might have to like use a bit of a mirror. Oh, I'm sorry. Those are two. Oh, I've got right question. Here we go. Back in the room. Maybe use a mirror to monitor your larynx and see what's going on there. If there's no, Hannah, you may not have a visible. Like you might not be able to visibly do that. So maybe lightly, very, very lightly, place your fingers on your throat. We're just monitoring. We are monitoring. We're touching so lightly, like barely touching. It's like a butterfly has landed on your skin. It should feel like that, like it's barely there, right? And just see if you feel any motion. And if you're feeling the musculature, particularly like under the jaw where it's pushing down on the structures there, see if you can undo that. This can mean doing some things that are kind of strange feeling, like pressing the rear of the tongue towards the roof of the mouth in order to avoid that, eventually working towards having a more neutral position for that apparatus, for the tongue root as well as the larynx. And hopefully that would cure it. But yeah, it's no fun. No fun to feel that way. Ashton. Hi, Jeff. I can sing from C3 to about E5. I find that as low as my voice can go, that it sounds the nicest sound, E3 to A4. After that, sound quality goes away. Any advice on improving? Depends on what you want to improve, in part. I mean, because you haven't actually told me what's wrong or what needs to be improved. Like, if it's that you want it to sound the same throughout, then make sure you're honoring your registration fence, allowing for vowel modification. You may have to check in on apogeo breath management, particularly as you move past A4 towards E5. I also don't know anything else about your voice than what you've told me here. If you're what FOC you might be, or if you're male or female. There's some unknowns here that for me make it really, really difficult to give you more specific advice. But in short, if you want to have a unified sound throughout the various registers of your voice, then you have to honor those registers. You have to allow for the adjustments that occur. Ironically enough, allowing our voices to adjust, in fact, makes them sound more similar than if we try to prevent them from adjusting. Let me say that again. If we allow them to adjust, the sound will be more consistent than if we try to prevent it from adjusting. Like all those times when you hear a vocalist and they're singing higher and higher and higher, and you can hear that it's starting to get strident, and then eventually they sort of like it pops off and the vocal folds separate and they get a falsetto tone production where the vocal folds are only lightly adducting and it gets that light, airy sound. Usually that happens when the vocalist has been trying to maintain their sound quality and then they can no longer sustain it. Had they instead honored their registration events, they would have been much more likely to keep the vocal folds properly adducted and maintained consistent tone quality, notwithstanding the strain that you can hear creeping in as they ascend. That too isn't consistent tone quality. That's indication of strain. So, honor your registration events, develop a good apogeo practice. Maybe, I don't know that I'll get to it today because we are getting short on time here, but maybe tell me more. That would help me be more specific. How can I practice mixed belting? I can't stop pushing my chest voice up. It sounds decent, but I really want that mix like quality of my voice. Well, you have to understand that, J.O., those don't go together. If you're using your cricothyroid dominant singing voice, then you're not belting. By definition, belting, I mean, I don't mean to be absolutist about this. Please don't take my word for it. You'll certainly find people online that will disagree with what I just said. That they'll tell you that you've got to mix in a little bit of that head voice with the chest voice above the secondo passaggio, and then you get that belting sound above there. But by definition, that's not what belting is. Belting, by definition, is that we have we are sticking to the thyroarytenoid dominant singing voice muscles, and we are not allowing for any cricothyroid activity as we continue to ascend or mount the scale. And in non-technical terms, that means I'm sticking to my chest voice. I'm not going to use any of my head voice. So while you can certainly have more or less cricothyroid activity above the secondo passaggio, if you're using that, then that's not by definition belting. You may have see, and the irony here too is that you don't get a chestier sound above the secondo passaggio by favoring the thyroarytenoid dominant singing voice muscles, by favoring the chest voice muscles. You get a balanced sound above the secondo passaggio by having balance between the cricothyroid dominant singing voices and the thyroarytenoid dominant singing voice muscles. In other words, it isn't that when you have a full kind of resonant, rich-like sound above the secondo passaggio that you are favoring the chest voice muscles. No, You have a balance between the two. I realize that stands in opposition to much of what you'll find even on YouTube and elsewhere. Please don't take my word for it, but don't take necessarily the words of what you find on YouTube either. Take a look in a book. Libraries have them. The Oxford Handbook of Singing just issued a new book. It's across the piano from me. I've been working my way through it. I like to use Richard Miller's books because they're tiny and really concise, but hard to get through because it's a lot of technical language, and often they're out of print. But that's just it. So if you want to have that super cheste, voce piena in testa is the term for it, the sound of chest voice in head. Voce piena in testa, the sound of chest voice in head. If that's what you want, work towards balance. Kevin. Hi, Jeff. I can do riffs and runs, but can't think of other lines. How do you make riffs dependent on the song? Love it. Cool question. At the risk of sounding really, really like oovy groovy, I would kind of like let my mind wander and listen. Sometimes it's cool to get all analytical. And I mean, I could say like, well, you want lines that are absolutely like derived from the songs that you're working in. Well, transcribe the melody. That's how improvisation often begins, is with the melody of the head or the tune that you're using. So transcribe the melody. Notice any interesting turns of interval or phrase in said melody. Incorporate that into your riffs and adapt it to suit your artistic desires. But sometimes it's fun to just kind of imagine, to listen to the tune, or even still, like if you have the ability to listen to the track without the vocal line in it, or with an instrumental vocal line, and just kind of imagine like where it might go, and just let your ear and your mind kind of wander along with it. That's kind of how I like to do things. And then from there, I might transcribe what it was that I came up with. One, so I don't forget it, but two, so I can take a close look at it and see if it suits the artistic pursuits that I'm after. Yeah, that would be my suggestion. Good question. Andrew, how are colors distinguished in German opera classification? I want to know before I buy your T-shirt. I have no idea. I have no idea, and I don't know if there is something with that. I am utterly ignorant of it. I've never even heard of it. Thanks for considering the T-shirt, though. We pick those colors. I don't know if you can pick other colors. That's really cool. But we just picked the colors that we picked because we thought they were cool looking. But I have absolutely no idea. Thank you for answer. Get well soon. Thank you very much. I'm going to be absolutely fine. Just had a rough day yesterday. How to practice a song? Great question. Take it apart, put it back together, basically. Spend your time on the parts that are challenging to you, not the parts that are easy. So if there's some weird interval or something like that in the verse that's giving you problems, focus on that. Focus on the parts that are hard for you. You might also work from the back to the front, rather than from the front to the back. Too frequently, we spend all our time on like the first verse, chorus, second verse, chorus, and we never get around to the coda and the end of the song, and it's sort of like an afterthought to our practice process. You might work from the back to the front, or at least use that from time to time as a means by which to make sure that you're spending just as much time on that section of the tune as the rest of it. But that would be my answer. German, whoa. I knew, wow. Oh, wow. So I had no idea, folks. Goodness, I had no idea I'd gotten that far behind. I was, the scroll bar on my chat, was like this big thing. And I was like, okay, cool. Like it's chilled out, like there's not a lot of questions. But then I tapped the bottom of the chat and it just like exploded. Yeah, Yeah, exactly. Operalars. German Fox are usually categorized after vocal weight and age. They do take into account registration events as well. But yeah, but in terms of colors like red or blue or yellow, at least that's what I thought their question was. How can I get more of a raspy voice? I'm going to kind of enter a sort of speed round here to try to catch up a little bit. So forgive the brevity of some of these answers. Raspy voice, you're looking for a little bit less vocal fold adduction. So you might have to experiment a little bit with it, but you can start by practicing a little vocal fry. Be gentle with your voice though with that. Dishkow too, but he totally 82. Thank you, Jeff. Great tips. You're very welcome. Hello, I have been subscribed for a long time. Your videos on vocal tenor is my go-to. Brilliant. Thank you so much. Thanks for all the warm-up videos. Singing actually, you're very welcome. Thank you for all you do. Utilize your warm-ups regularly. Wonderful. Thank you for watching. Here in South America, when do you typically schedule your lessons with clients? How easy is it to book lessons with you? I book lessons throughout all days and times. I've accommodated virtually every time zone that I can think of. Right now, it's difficult to get. I have at this point a lot of clients, I'm afraid, and so it's difficult to find time in my schedule to meet with new clients. But if you want to pursue that, and I can talk to you more about it, send an email to me via the website jeffrolka.com on the contact page, and I can give you all the information on that. Beneath the blue suburban skies. I love it. Hey, Jeff. Hope you're having a good day. A great day. I can now sing in tune. Awesome. Most time, but how can I make my singing good as stylistically what you suggest? In short, look at the styles that you admire and begin by emulating them, and then branch off into your own repertoire. If you are writing your own music, this will be easier than if you're singing covers. If you're singing covers, then you're probably already doing this to a certain extent. If you want to make more of your own style or make more conscious decisions about the style that you're singing, change the key, change the tempo, do things to the tune to make you do it differently. And then you can try and come back to the original key and original tempo and see if you can still have your own style. I am Suzanne. I am not freezing today. Thank you for asking. Thank you for asking. No, it's gotten a bit warmer here now, so it's much better. Andrew Case, here to tell you thank you for your channel and the 20-minute tenor warm-up. After 2-3 months of regular use, 4 days a week, has completely improved my break. Fantastic. Fantastic. Vin. Hi, Jeff. I'm an avid fan of your warm-up vids. Thank you. I just want to ask about a problem of mine. I'm usually not pitchy before, but now I noticed that it became pitchy. What do I do? Please help. I'd need to know more information, I'm afraid. It would be better to know the circumstances. Like if it's in a recording session and all of a sudden you've gone from practicing without cans to practicing with headphones on, that's going to make a difference, I'm afraid. I wish it were not so, but it will. So I'm afraid I can be of limited help in this question because I just need to know more about it, especially if in general your intonation was quite good. Jose, I usually practice at home, so I'm wary of my neighbors. And I picked up a bad habit where my vocal gets thinner when this is a common thing. This is common. You got to be careful with that. You have to find ways to get around that. There's no substitute for it because you are training yourself to sing that way. That's the thing. That's not a bad habit. I mean, it is a habit. You can talk about it that way, but you are in fact training yourself to sing those notes that way. So you need to evaluate your practice regimen or your situation or find times when no one's around or something so that you can practice with a more neutral and balanced mode of phonation. Hi, Jeff. I'm very new to singing. I've been doing the beginner exercises on your channel. Do you think I will see improvement soon? Also, I think I tend to sound flat. How can I fix that? So if you're out of tune, just keep on working towards a balance between airflow and vocal fold engagement. So definitely evaluate your appoggio practice. Definitely evaluate the appoggio practice. there are these sweet spots in our training where like the new vocalist may not see improvement for some time. And then there will come a point where like there's vowel alignment and the airflow and the idea of legato and keeping the airflow consistent, and you'll kind of pop into the intermediate range. But in my experience, really, really new vocalists will spend some time being beginners, being new to the practice. And then all of a sudden, you're going to get like a much better ability to line up your vowels and things like that. This is all still below the secondo passaggio, even frequently below the primo passaggio. And I would carry on that way. Like stay below the primo passaggio, keep on focusing on appoggio, keep on working on vowel alignment, keep going basically, and make sure you have a regular practice. I practice on tune and proper for a performance, but I don't sing as loud as I should during performance. Well, then that's, yeah. So, right. So when you do that, you're training yourself to sing that way. That's the reality of that. There's really, I wish there was some way around it. But yeah. I mean, that's what you're learning to do there. You'll have to, I would evaluate it or talk to your neighbors and see like, hey, this is what I do. I need to practice. When's a good time for me to do it? AAA method is showing me improvements I've never experienced before. That is awesome. Thank you. I always appreciate that. I feel very good about the AAA method. Like I feel really good about all the things that I do and I put online. I wouldn't put it up there if I didn't feel that it was adequately vetted in terms of its content and execution. It's really nice to hear that. Thank you for letting me know. Keep up with it. 30 minutes a day can have a huge effect over a month. You're absolutely right. Then you can sing Amore. Not the same tune, I know, but which is an aria from Madame Butterfly, right? Thanks for the advice. Hi. Sorry, Jeff. I hit the text limit. Oh, I'm mailed. Oh, I didn't know. Yeah, I guess there is a limit, isn't there? I wonder if I can change that. I want to extend my lower and higher range with call. Yeah, so that's largely what I said back when I saw that comment too regarding the A4 to E5, and I think it was like E3 to something else lower. Appoggio, vowel alignment, honor the registration events. That is what leads to consistency throughout the entirety of our vocal ranges. And realize that the extremes are always going to be the extremes. They're always going to take more energy and more focus, and may not always be usable. They may not be usable in performance immediately or for some time. That's not to say you can't do it. It's just that it may still bear some small adjustments to it, as opposed to the rest of your range. But honestly, I can make an argument artistically for why we might want a little bit of differentiation. Thanks for the advice. You're very welcome. Steven, I have been watching your videos for a while, and I'm so glad that I'm able to thank you for all your content. By the way, I wanted to know if having intercourse affects in some way singing. I have no idea. I have no idea. I just don't, I don't know. I don't know. Caitlin, when are you going to do more singing warm-ups? Are you going to do singing warm-ups when you are going live? You mean like in this thing, in the live event, I usually just answer questions and I sing for examples. I don't really do warm-ups. Are you suggesting, Caitlin, that I do like a live warm-up sometime? Because I've been thinking about that, and I know we've only got a few minutes and I'm probably going to miss most of it, but maybe just give me like a thumbs up in the chat if you'd like me to do an online live singing warm-up sometime where, not only would I would just mostly be doing what I do in the videos, playing. I kind of think I might sing a little bit more in those, which would also give me an opportunity to give examples and also explain things. That was the kind of format that I was thinking about for the live singing warm-ups. Give me like a thumbs up in the chat if you think that would be a nice idea, and we can try it. My question is not more on technicals, but on an emotional level. How do I sing more connected with my emotions when I sing? Like telling a story. I sound like I fake the emotions when I sing. Well, record yourself. Record yourself and listen back to it. And you might also talk to people around you. Your internal experience is not necessarily what is coming out. I once had a lesson with a very famous vocal instructor, and I asked basically that same question. And he told me that I needed to amp up my rhythm. He said, you have no idea what is going on in the head of the person who is standing on stage. You could be listening to them thinking that they are, just so deeply into the music, and they could be thinking about the sandwich that they're going to have when they get off stage. If you get too emotionally involved in the song, you might break down and cry, and then you are serving no one. That isn't necessarily a good place to be. That being said, there's an argument to be made for getting personally deeper into the music. Not necessarily because that conveys it any better to the audience. I'm not convinced that it does. But that it kind of justifies and authenticates our own experience of the music. My advice to you is to look at all of those things. Look at the technicals of it. I know you said you're not talking about technicals, but look at the technicals of it too. Get into it. Explore what it's like to, drum up ideas that make you feel like you're going to weep for what you're singing. And explore what it feels like to kind of push it as far as you can so that you can still maintain good singing, but are only just. And then also record yourself and maybe, ask some people who've heard you sing or have heard you perform and see what they think. What do they feel, if anything? And then use that as some information to move forward. I can tell you that, like in my own experience, the performances that I felt the most were not necessarily the performances that I communicated the best. If you get what I'm saying, right? I think of what we do as musicians as being conduits for it, that we have to be the vehicle or the vessel. Vessel's too important, more like the vehicle. We're like a subway. Subways are really important too. We're just moving it. We're moving it from point A to point B. We are there to convey the emotion, to convey the information to the listener. They are going to take it and process it and feel it. It's like, I believe it was Mozart who said, you write the piece and pray that it gets into the hands of a talented performer. It's not that they're going to somehow imbue it with emotion. It was already there. They're just going to convey it to the audience. That's perhaps a little bit on the extreme side of things, but yeah, somewhere in there, I hope that you find a happy medium that lets you move forward with it. So I'm afraid I have to go. Thank you all so much for being here. I'm so sorry I didn't get to everyone's questions. I know there's a load more questions. I'm going to scroll down here and see okay, so we like the idea. Cool. Excellent. Well, we should try that. Okay. I mean, that's plenty. Thank you. Thank you, Jose. I appreciate that. That's plenty of thumbs up to go for a live vocal warm-up. That could be a lot of fun. And it would let me, sing a little bit more too, along with everybody. Thank you, David. Always a pleasure to hear from you, David. I really do have to go, everybody. I'm so sorry. I so enjoy this time. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful day. Take really good care of your voices. Enjoy singing. If you're not subscribed, please consider it now. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.